Welcome to Magnify with Sue, the podcast for people who've done everything they were told and still feel something's missing. I'm Sue Paulson. Every week, we look at what it takes to move from self doubt to self love, from fear to inner peace, from striving to be enough to remembering you already are. Because the truth is, you came in magnificent. The essence of you isn't out there, it's right here in your own heart. So let's go find it. Let's magnify. Greetings, my magnificent ones. Sue Paulson here, and we're back with another episode of Magnify with Sue. This is the place you come if you're feeling self-doubt. You don't even know if you love yourself, and yet you have a sense that there's a magnificence about you that you've never really explored to the depth and the breadth that you could. So that's what we're here for, is to have a place where we can open up to all of the wonder that each of us is, and then, of course, spread that out into the world. So I'm so excited today because I have a guest that I'm so keen to talk to. I want to introduce you to Laura Hoorweg, who is a spiritual counselor. She's an intuitive coach and a psychic medium. I think she has lots of adventures she's going to be able to share with us. She's from my sister province in British Columbia. She's in Vancouver, Canada, and where I'm here in Edmonton. Let's dive in a little bit. I was reading some fascinating things on your website and about your life, and we talked about the thrills, the chills, the spills that life brings to. Well, I'm not sure anybody escapes that, quite honestly. Some are a little more adventurous
I
than
was gonna
others.
say, I think it's just mainly degree.
Yes, I think that's exactly right. One of the things that intrigued me when I read your bio was you mentioned that you went looking for God at age 11. And I thought, "Oh, how interesting." So what brought that about? Like, why did you do that?
Well, number one, you have to understand that I did not grow up. My family of origin was not religious whatsoever. I think
Okay.
the only time I had gone to church was way back. I think when I was about 5 years old, and my mom sent us off for a short period to like Sunday school. And that was my
Yes, sure.
entire church experience. But obviously I was yearning because I was getting more and more connected. And of course, being in a Judeo-Christian culture, everybody believed that God and the angels was in church. So I figured if I was going to find them, I would have to go to church.
Sure.
So coincidentally, of course, I don't believe in coincidence, but that's a
No.
whole other story. I happened to live in a neighborhood where there was at least 5 or 6 churches within walking distance of my home.
Nice.
So every Sunday, I would put on my Sunday best because that's what you did back in the day,
Of course.
and run off to a different church, and multiple denominations, all kinds of different churches, including like a Salvation Army church. And I met some really nice people. I met some not so nice people. I heard a lot of great music. But I discovered very rapidly that God and the angels did not live in church. So I continued my quest.
Yes, of course. It's interesting, isn't it, when we have that awareness of what we thought was going to happen in that search that didn't
Well,
actually happen.
yeah, and I will say that, some people find their connection in church.
Mhm.
I have lots of friends
Sure.
that's where they found their connection. What I'm saying is I just didn't find mine there.
Right,
And,
right.
I continued on in that journey, and where I did find as I got into my preteens and my teens, I was also in Girl Guides, Girl Scouts for the Americans,
Mhm.
and, I did a lot of hiking and camping and canoe tripping and all that kind of thing. And what I really found was my cathedral was actually in the wilderness, and my where I had the greatest connection to whatever you want to call it, God, the
Yeah,
creator,
sure.
whatever label you want to put on it.
Mhm.
That's where I found my connection, and still to this day, that's where I find my strongest connection, and the more wilderness, the better, because that
Ah,
energy is less and less, I'm just gonna use the word polluted,
correct.
or
Yes, sure. Of
degraded, let's
course.
say that, that's probably a better word, degraded
Right.
by all the stuff that we have in our modern world. So the more wilderness you're in, the better that the cleaner the energy and the higher the vibration of the energy. So,
Sure.
that's where you can really make an incredible connection.
Oh, absolutely. I can recall having a an amazing spiritual experience in Sedona, in
Mm.
Arizona, and I was so drawn to that area. I didn't even really know why. There's just something about being there, and then, of course, afterwards, I found out about the vortexes that are
Well, I was gonna say there's a lot of portals, vortexes, whatever you wanna
yeah,
call them, and
exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
and I'm oh, interesting, and not that I was that aware at the time of what it was I was feeling, I just knew I felt differently
yes,
than if I was someplace else. So,
someplace
yes.
else, yeah.
Well, you're absolutely right. So nature is a huge opportunity, I think, and they keep telling us in the stresses and strains of modern living, the importance of, well, get back to nature and
Yeah.
go out and hug a tree or whatever.
You know, earthing, that's where the whole earthing movement came from,
Exactly.
and it really does make a difference, and when I'm with my clients, I always counsel people to spend as much time outdoors as you possibly can, and of course, the wilder, the better. But, don't discount your neighborhood park or your if you've got a lovely backyard, any
Yes.
place where there's trees and animals and water too, like lakes and
Yes.
rivers
Mhm.
are have wonderful energy to them. And
Yes.
as it happens, I happen to live very close to the Fraser River, which is a huge river, which is
Oh, it is.
it's ocean directly ocean fed. It's actually tidal down this end, and that is a huge current of energy flowing through the land as well.
Yes, of course, absolutely. And so when you I love that because when you think of nature, how do you think that that shaped your journey once you found your cathedral in nature? So, then how did that impact you as you move forward in life?
I think that just I found a lot of healing there. I had a very, very challenging childhood and young
Mhm.
adulthood. And the more time I spent in nature, the more healing and grounded and stillness. There's a good word.
Sure.
It's a really good place to find that stillness, and that's another thing that's so difficult to find now, especially now, even
Yes.
more so than, 20, 30 years ago, because our world just keeps speeding up and there's just more and more, electronic pollution and 5G and radio waves and Wi-Fi and all this kind of stuff. So the further you get away from that, the more that your body can just naturalize with the true rhythms of the actual planet instead of all this artificial
Yes.
stuff
Yeah.
with this human residence and all that kind of thing.
Yes, isn't that right? Cool. So, when we think about where we go in life. So let's talk a little bit about some of the some of the thrills and the chills that you've had as as you've gone. I noticed that you've had a few death-defying adventures, and as I have, and I'd like to know what happened as a result of some of those events. So what understandings did you get? Like how did that turn out for you?
Well, one of the big ones that everybody seems to key in on is when I was 15. Again, I was out in pristine nature. I was working at a Y camp up in northern Ontario,
Mhm.
up in Algonquin Park, which is very pristine, or was then. I have a feeling it's probably not so much now,
Sure.
but it was then. Three, 40 years ago or so. Yeah, it's at least 40 years ago. Probably 45 years ago.
Sure.
Whew, it gets scary sometimes. Anyway, I was working with the Y, and I was working in a canoe tripping camp, and part of the program was also a rock climbing and rappelling program. So we were actually training with a couple of the instructors, and basically the way rock climbing and rappelling works is you climb up the face and you get
Mhm.
to the
Right.
top, and then you rejig everything, and then you rappel back down.
Of course.
Well, we had already climbed up to the top of the cliff, and we were just taking a break and getting equipment ready and stuff like that. And I was standing on the edge of the cliff, and I was looking out, and as far as I could see, all the way to the horizon up northern Ontario, that you can't see anything but lakes and trees and rock.
Sure.
Okay, it's Canadian Shield, and it was just, I think what triggered this experience was the awe and beauty that was in front of me. And you wanna
Sure.
talk about pristine and quiet, and there was nothing but natural sounds and a few voices behind me. So what happened is I actually had an out of body experience, and I was just standing there, and all of a
Mhm.
sudden it was just like this feeling of whoosh, and I was out of my body, and I was actually in the air looking down onto my own body
Really?
standing there, and,
Sure.
everybody else in the party. And I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. And I felt absolutely safe. I just felt really expanded. I
Mhm.
felt part of everything, but it's an interesting feeling, and it's hard to explain because I felt part of everything, but I still felt very individual and unique. So it wasn't
Mhm.
like I lost my identity, but it
No.
was like my identity just became expanded into everything else.
Sure.
And I was just getting used to that. And then all of a sudden, whoosh again. And I'm like, "Oh my god." And then I'm looking down on the earth,
Mhm.
like I was
Mhm.
outside of the earth. And I'm gonna date myself here, but, when I was really young, it's when they did the first moon shots and all the first time that we had seen the earth from
Yes.
outside of the earth. And
Right.
that was very, very, very symbolic. And a lot of the astronauts talked about what an incredible experience that was to actually look down. Because I was
Of
looking
course.
down, I could see all the continents and the oceans and the clouds and all this
Yeah.
stuff.
Wow.
So that was really cool. And I thought, oh wow. And I'm just, again, I'm getting into this, and I'm going, wow, what's next? And all of a sudden, whoosh, as soon as I had that thought, I was like, whoosh. And I was out in the universe, because I was now out in the
Wow.
universe, and I was surrounded by all these spiral galaxies. And it's
Mhm.
interesting because back then, way back then, we didn't have all this information about because we didn't have all these huge telescopes that were
No.
off the
Of
earth.
course.
So we
Yes.
had a much more limited. Now it's like nothing. Everybody goes, "Oh yeah, well, what's so spectacular about that?" Well, back in the day, we
Mm.
didn't know how all this stuff worked, and not to mention, I was in the universe, so I wasn't even. I looked over and I went, "Oh, there was a big a spiral galaxy there," and I went, "Oh, that's the Milky Way." And I also had all this knowledge,
Sure.
and I looked at the arm because I know this now, but I
Mhm.
didn't know it then. There was an
Right.
arm of the Milky Way, and I went, "Oh, there's Earth. There's Earth there in that little arm, right?"
Sure.
And it was wild. And then all of a sudden, I was just started again thinking, "What's next now?" And then I'm gonna date myself again. It was like that big hand in Star Trek came and grabbed me and
Mhm.
yanked me back into my body. And then I'm standing there, and I learned what happened. What actually happened in physical 3D
Mhm.
was one of the climbing instructors started getting worried that I was too close to the edge. And he
Ah,
came up behind me, and he just grabbed the back of my pants and yanked me back. And
sure.
that plummeted me back into my body. And I always say it felt like taking a basketball and trying to shove it into a Coke bottle. That's what it felt like.
Wow. Mhm.
'Cause I was
Mhm.
so expanded. It
Of
actually
course.
took 2 or 3 days for me to feel totally comfortable in my body again. So that
Oh, no
experience
surprise. Yeah.
changed everything about the way that I thought about who we were, about spirit, about, life after death, who we really are. Because I was obviously still me, and I wasn't in my body, and I wasn't dead.
Yes, right.
So
Exactly.
I kind of categorize this as somewhere, because I've done a lot of reading about NDEs, near death
Mhm.
experiences,
Yep.
and astral traveling, and I've done some astral traveling myself. But I sort of categorize this experience because everybody wants me to categorize everything.
Mm.
It's somewhere between an NDE and an out of body experience because it had some of the characteristics of both. So it was a
Sure.
very
Of course.
interesting experience. But of course, I have tried to, over the years, try to replicate this particular experience, and I've never exactly replicated it.
No, no, no.
So it is what it is.
Well, exactly. Oh, that's an astounding thing to happen. So I'm curious what you felt coming back to planet Earth. So there you are, just jammed right back into your body. How did you feel about that?
Actually, I was kind of ticked off because I was really no, seriously, I was really enjoying this experience.
Yep.
And I felt like it got cut short. And the thing that
Okay.
I forgot to mention was, to me, it's felt like probably about an hour, maybe an hour and a half.
Hmm.
And I'm sure in 3D time, this was like probably like a minute and a half. You know what
Oh,
I mean?
sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I was really curious because at the time, even though I was kind of a scientific kid and stuff like that, the most we knew was kind of the level that I got to, like being in the universe and looking at all the spiral galaxies.
Hmm.
I was so curious as to what that next level would be, and I
Yes.
never got to that next level.
Right.
So, yeah, I was kind of ticked off about that. But it
Yeah.
really did change, it changed my thought about who I was,
Hmm. Hmm.
what spirit was, what physicality was, what death was, because obviously I was out of my body and I wasn't dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it also showed me that we are spirit and that goes on beyond death because of course I'm out of my body and I'm
Yeah.
still going. So
Yeah.
there must be something
Something
more
there.
than just the life in the body. So
Sure.
there was a lot of things that came out of that experience. And honestly, it, uh, that experience was probably processed over decades as opposed to, um, weeks or months or years.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Oh,
And
I
honestly,
went.
I probably talked more about that experience in the last 2 years,
Hmm.
since I started doing podcasting,
Right. Hmm.
than I've ever talked about it in my whole life. Because I didn't really
Interesting.
talk about it a lot to a lot of people.
No.
There's times that I had that conversation, but it was very few, very few.
Sure. Sure. Well, there's this, especially when we have it at a time when there's not the level of understanding or acceptance.
Yes.
And I know, so I can relate because when I had my near death experience in 2007, it just rocked my world. And I wasn't that shy about talking about it, but I could tell by the looks on people's faces like they're
Oh, yeah,
going,
yeah.
okay, is she delusional or like what's going on here?
Well, it's funny you say that because that's like 2007, right?
Hmm.
When I had my experience, we're talking about the 70s,
Yes.
okay?
Okay. Oh, yeah. So even
Yeah.
then, I mean, you didn't even talk about out of body. You had to really have gone into a specific route to even know about out of body.
About that, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
at
no
that
kidding.
time, I had nothing really compare it with or to
Yeah.
kind
No context. Yeah,
no,
for sure.
that's the word I'm looking for, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love menopause. It
You
breaks
know,
my connection with my thesaurus, like, it's just really a pain in the ass.
I have the
But
same issue.
But anyway, yes, I had no context. So it's something that I don't think I ever discussed it when I was a kid, when I was a teenager.
No.
I
Sure.
don't think I ever discussed it probably till I was well into actually it was probably because when I got really started getting into spirituality was in
Hmm.
my very early 30s, because my 20s was just party hardy girl.
Sure.
So yeah, it was probably about then where I started to think of it in different ways and I started to be able to have some context.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Yes. Well, I find it kind of fascinating that we look at ourselves as puny humans kind of thing, which is sort of the way we're taught when we're first on the planet, and then to have this experience, it expands things to the point where we're going, this is not the way I was brought up or what
Yeah.
I was taught or whatever. And it's a little challenging to digest that. And one of the reasons I asked you, well, how did you feel about that? And you mentioned you were ticked off and thought, man, when I came back to planet Earth, I was so angry
Yeah.
And because it shook up all of my previous beliefs and notions about how I thought the world worked, I
Mhm.
didn't quite know what to do with it. So I was a good 4 years processing that to
Mhm.
try to make sense of my world because it just didn't like I didn't know where to go with it. And so I reached out to a spiritual counselor that I heard about and said, in fact, she was in Vancouver and I flew to her and I
Wow.
s it was just I was so desperate, and it was a Thanksgiving weekend, and I thought, "What are the chances that she'll even see me? Never mind, I can get a flight at the last minute," because I was just desperate. Well, the doors opened up, and yes, she
Yeah,
was
that's the
able
way
to
it
see
usually
me, and
happens.
oh my goodness, it just and her support and help with that made a huge difference in me, eh, getting, I guess, kind of grounded with that, and so that was, it was really helpful in, "Okay, how am I gonna move forward from here?" But you're right, when you get that understanding that we are eternal, that
Mhm.
that oh, yeah, our bodies eventually are gonna go back to the earth and as is natural, but we live on, and so you go, well, if there's no reason to fear death, then because we don't die as spirit, well, then what does that mean? What could we do beyond that? So now you have had an interesting journey now embarking into the area of working with others as a spiritual counselor, doing intuitive work, doing psychic mediumship. So how how has that been for you in the work? Like, why are you doing that work now?
Well, okay, I have to frame it a little bit. I spent 30 years in corporate in the, advertising
Sure.
and marketing, which is
Hmm.
like polar opposite to what I'm doing now.
Right.
I always said that, I actually left the business about 11 years ago now, 12 years ago?
Hmm.
Where are we? Yeah, probably 12 years ago, because I left in oh, at least 12 years ago, 13 years ago. I left in, 2013, middle of 2013.
Hmm.
Because the newspaper business basically went into the toilet with the advent of online and stuff like that. So they were
Yep.
cutting staff and cutting staff and cutting staff.
Sure.
And I decided that this is probably going to be one of the last times that they offered the buyout. So it was like, write me my. I didn't plan this at all. I just said
No.
like, okay, and the pressure and the work environment got so toxic. I just said,
Sure.
give me my check and I'm out of here.
Yep.
So I left without a plan. How
So
yeah,
yeah.
it's wonderful because the reason I mentioned my past work is I spent 30 years basically convincing people to buy things that they really didn't need. And so I really, after a succession of things happened to me, including suddenly losing my partner, my life partner,
Oh
I
boy.
decided that I wanted to help people to make their lives work. And so that has always been the main thrust of my work is to help people make their lives work and to connect with their authentic self because you can't we come in, we plan out almost everything, most of what's going to happen to us in this
Mhm.
particular lifetime before we actually come in.
Sure.
And unfortunately, when we do come into this lifetime, we are basically brainwashed out of everything that we came in to do.
Yep.
Like we're, by family, by religion, by culture, by nationality, advertising. Uh,
Yep.
where everything tells us who we should be instead of showing us and helping us to find out who we really are.
Right.
So I always say that I help people to find out who they really are. Because if
Mhm.
you want your life to work well, the first thing you have to do is find out who you really are. Because if you're not connected to who you really are, your life's really not going to work for you. Okay.
No, isn't that right?
So that is one main support thing of my counseling and coaching. The other piece of it is my mediumship work, and that is to help people deal with grief.
Sure.
I've
Mhm.
had lots of experience in that myself. And it's
Mhm.
not just, people always think of grief as in terms of losing a loved ones.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of other things that we grieve. Like, you could have,
Absolutely.
you can grieve losing a career, you can grieve losing, some people even go into deep, dark grief about losing their youth. Like,
Yep.
there, friendships, there's all kinds of grief in the world, but definitely losing loved ones is definitely a big part of that.
Yes.
But the problem is that people end up having all kinds of regrets and recriminations against themselves and all these things and guilt that interfere because we're meant to grieve but people don't realize that grieving is actually a healing process. And if
Yes,
you look at,
exactly.
Kubler-Ross's work, the
Mhm.
stages of grief and all that, what happens to a lot of people is they get stuck in one of the stages.
They do. Yes.
And often it's the anger stage, okay?
Yes.
Um,
Isn't that true? Oh boy.
yeah, well, anger is a mixture of fear. It springs from fear and regret, as far as I'm concerned.
Mhm.
And it's a trap because, like I said, I've met people who have lost somebody 10, 15 years ago, and they're still grieving that person. And when I say grieving, I mean heavily grieving in the initial stage
Yes.
of the grief.
Right.
And that is absolutely not what's supposed to happen. Okay.
No, no.
Different people take different time to grieve, but it's definitely not meant to go on that long. Like really, the big stages of grief, a lot of it depends on what you're grieving, but when in terms of loved ones and stuff like that, usually a year to year and a half, 2 years.
Right.
If you go beyond that point and you're still in super heavy, and when I say heavy grief, I mean debilitating grief.
Yes.
If your
Right.
grieving is keeping you from living your life
Mhm.
and you're like 2 years or more out, you need to have a serious look because you're stuck in some
Yes,
way, shape,
for
or form.
sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I've certainly know of people in my life who uh, going through divorce as an example, and
Oh, there's another thing. Yes, that's another grief. Yeah.
and the anger and the bitterness, and I said, "Well, how long have you been apart?" "Oh, 20 years." And I'm going,
Yes.
"You physically unhitched from this person, and yet the ball and chain
Is still
of the
attached.
emotions, you're still attached to them," and it
Well, see,
just
the thing
shocks
is,
me.
it's not only especially in that particular type of grief,
Mhm.
that's not just about the emotional and psychological attachments, okay? When you're married to somebody, there's energy, there's cords, okay?
Sure, of course.
And that people don't realize how to sever those cords and I would love I can't believe I'm going to say this. I would love to teach a course on conscious uncoupling
Yes. Yes.
because this is what people, it could save not only so many people's lives, but so many children's lives.
Yes.
Because,
Oh,
when parents uncouple in an unconscious manner, which means in the midst of anger and resentment and hatred in some particular cases,
yes,
it
exactly.
it has a super, super negative effect on children because there's
Yes.
no way you can actively or healthfully co-parent children when you are in that incredible adversarial hatred with your ex-partner. Okay.
Mhm.
It's impossible to do. Okay.
No, no,
And this
that's
is
right.
why this is really, they always talk about children being damaged by divorce.
Mhm.
Children are not being damaged by divorce. They're being damaged by how their parents handle their divorce. Okay. That's a very, no, I'm
Yes.
serious.
Let's get specific, of course. Yeah,
It's a very serious
yeah.
thing. And,
Yeah,
and,
it is.
and what it does is it also produces crippled adult children of divorce. Okay.
Yes.
And,
Yeah,
and these people often cannot maintain a healthy relationship
yeah,
because they were so crippled by the things that they experienced through their parents' divorce.
for sure, for
And
sure.
that's like really sad.
Yeah, well, it is. I've had, 2 divorces in my life, and the second one, which was a long-term relationship, we we got through the usual stoopy-doop stuff that everybody goes through, the anger and bitterness against one another and so on, but at some point, because we both had a little better level of consciousness in dealing with it, we were able to come back around and remembered that we had vowed to ourselves at the very beginning that no matter what, we would always remain friends.
Friends, yeah.
And that happened, and it was through effort on both our parts
Mhm.
to come back round to that, and I still get shocked looks from people saying, "You're friends with your ex?" And I'm going, "Well, yes,
Well,
of course."
you see, that is part of the problem, okay? People
Yeah.
should not be shocked about this because
No.
I see this quite often. I see people that have, especially people with who have consciously uncoupled with children and
Mhm.
they are co-parenting their children, which is the way
Right.
it should be.
Yes, of
They
course.
have incredible relationships with
Yeah.
their ex-partners, and
Yeah.
in some cases, this blows me away. I've seen it to such an extent
Mhm.
that that they have a relation. They've gone into a. Both of them have gone into a second relationship, have
Mhm.
good partners, and these couples are actually friends.
Connecting, yes, of
Yeah,
course.
they're
Sure,
actually
sure.
connected,
Yeah.
and the main reason they're connected is because, of course, they've got these children. There's this child
Yes, of
exchange going
course.
on.
Yeah.
But what a wonderful thing to do. And the thing is, hatred. The only person that hatred hurts is you.
That's right. Isn't
It
that
does
true?
absolutely
Yeah.
nothing to the person that you're projecting that hatred onto.
No. No. No, no.
It
No.
really, I call it, hatred is, and actually, I think there's two main causes. Well, three. Okay, I get corrected. So I get corrected. Cancer. Okay, because you have
Mhm.
to remember what cancer is. Cancer is really abnormal cell growth. Okay, that's what
Yes,
cancer is. Like a
that's
lot
right.
of
Of
people don't
course.
understand what that
Yeah.
is.
Mhm.
And there's three main causes. One is guilt, one is
Mhm.
anger, and
Mhm.
one is hatred.
Mhm.
Anger and resentment they're kind of one and the same thing. But those are all well, and anger's really fear. They're just I'm getting corrected, okay? So
Mhm.
these things are what causes this cancer, this abnormal growth of cells, wherever it is. And the thing is, when you have these energies in your body, the cancer shows up wherever you have a weakness in your body or a system that is related to whatever you're angry or you have hatred or you're fearful of, okay? So, well, I'll give you an example. A lot of women who have been either sexually molested or raped
Mhm.
end up with some kind of feminine reproductive cancer. Okay, whether it's breast cancer, whether actually more so the lower cancers like
Yes. Yes.
uterine cancer or uh,
Ovarian cancer.
ovarian. That's the one.
Yeah.
Thank you, ovarian cancer. Those type of things. So, and you can almost tell when, where a cancer shows up,
Mhm.
what the cause of it is. For example, they're giving me another example in the lungs.
Mhm.
Lungs hold, grief. A lot of grief is
Uh-huh.
held in the lungs, and a lot of people with unhealed or unreleased grief
Mhm.
end up with some form of lung cancer. And they're always,
Right.
everybody always blames cigarette smoking and stuff like that. But there's thousands of people that have never smoked a day in their life. They've never been near a smoker, so it's not even like secondhand smoke, who
No,
have lung cancer. And I can guarantee you, in most of those situations, that these are people who are dealing with unhealed, unreleased grief for
sure.
decades, and it shows up in the
Yeah.
body.
Yeah.
Now,
Well,
if you happen to be a smoker or something, or in a toxic environment on top of that, well, you're pretty well done at that point.
it does
You know,
contribute.
yeah, it's just like, well, it's that layered thing, right?
Of
It's one
course.
thing on top of the other. But this
Sure.
is what people don't understand.
Yes. Yes. Well, and I mean, I can attest to that, and that was my own experience in going through cancer was I had to come to the understanding uh, of why it manifested in the first place, and I
Yes.
and I knew that the body was a communication device. Like, it's
Yep.
telling us stuff all the time. And I wasn't listening, and I wasn't listening, and I wasn't listening. And then, of course, it's front and center. And okay, you got my attention now.
Yeah.
And so, well, what is this particular experience teaching me? How is it going to serve me? When I've looked at other people that have come into my life that have been experiencing cancer,
Yeah.
I certainly, track what I know about their lives, and I'm going, "Oh, okay. I see
Well,
how
the
this
scary
can
thing
happen."
about this is if you, even if you get cured of your particular form of cancer, if
Mhm.
you don't cure the root cause, if you don't heal the root cause, I can guarantee you, you are going to have a recurrence of that cancer.
Yep.
And that's what people don't understand. The people who are cured of cancer and live out the rest of their lives and never have cancer again, it's because they've done the work to
Yes.
heal whatever the root cause of that cancer was in the first place. Unfortunately, the people that don't are the ones that have reoccurring cancer. And if they, and unfortunately, they usually end up passing away because you
Sure.
can only do so much to the body. And unfortunately,
Yeah.
get on my soapbox here for 1 minute. The way that we treat cancer is so injurious to the body. Most people don't realize this, and it's a horrifying statistic. Most people don't die from cancer, they die from chemotherapy, the
Oh,
complications of chemotherapy. And this a
absolutely.
lot of people don't realize, okay?
That's
Is
exactly right.
chemotherapy is so just rocks the body, just does horrible things to the body. So the real thing I'm getting at here is we have to come up with a different way of treating cancer because the quote unquote cure killing you is not really the way to treat any kind of disease.
No, that's exactly right. I always found it quite interesting that they combined the words chemo with therapy, because
Yes,
it's not therapy.
it's not
It is
therapy.
not therapy.
What it is it's like trying to kill a mosquito with a shotgun.
Yep.
That's what
Yeah.
and even radiation, they talk about, "Oh, we've got pinpoint radiation and all this stuff."
Mhm.
I'm sorry. But if you're radiating any part of your body, that radiation is going through your body. And
Yes.
it going into your system. Maybe not so much as chemotherapy, because when you're doing chemotherapy, it's gone through your whole body. Okay, there's just no two
Yep.
ways about it because it's going through your bloodstream.
Sure.
But both of those things, or in combination, oh my God, people who have both chemo and radiation, like I'm surprised anybody survives, actually, to be honest,
Mhm.
really.
Mhm.
I'm actually surprised sometimes that the survival rate is so high after people going through both those things.
Oh, sure. Well, to my way of thinking, it speaks to the resilience of the human spirit
Yes.
as
Yeah.
part of that. And of course, we never know when faced with a cancer diagnosis if it's meant to take us home, which is the
Yeah.
ultimate healing as far as I'm concerned, or if it's meant to wake us up.
Yeah.
And for me personally, it was a big wake up call to say, "Oh, Sue, are you living your best life?"
Yeah.
No, actually, I'm not. And but it took all of the
Yeah.
facets. So for me to, I needed to delve into mind and spirit and emotions and all of that to really get the full benefit of what is this journey here to show me. And not everybody has that option or thinks that that's even possible. It's just, okay, go to the doctor and you get onto the
The loop.
merry-go-round
Yeah.
of treatment, which is not so merry, and then, well, you're either gonna make it or you're not.
Yeah.
So so I agree with you. I think there is a better way, and we're just very slow to adopt that. So let me back up here a little bit to the idea of dis-ease, because of course
Yeah.
before disease there's dis-ease. So what are you noticing in working with your clients about some of the key challenges or frustrations or upsets that people are facing these days? Like, what's uppermost in people's psyche and
I'll tell you that what was broadcasted to me very clearly, sort I forget exactly when, but it was in sort of that time of COVID was really bizarre for me because it was very extended for me.
sure.
Is that everyone gets so concerned about physical ailments, okay?
Mhm, mhm,
And what was shown to me was that the next pandemic is not going to be a pandemic of a virus or disease. The next pandemic, and it's already started, by the way, which is very scary, is a mental illness.
mhm.
We started seeing this in and around COVID with the
Yes.
lockdowns and everything like that. We're also seeing it, which is very scary in children. The
Mhm,
level of anxiety and mental illness of children has
mhm.
never been so high. It's very scary.
Sure.
It's kind of like every second kid you meet is having major anxiety issue problems. And I don't just mean school age children. I also mean young people in their 20s and 30s.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah,
It's just
I'm seeing that too.
it's
Yeah.
just rampant, and there's a whole bunch of causes for it, but it's much, much harder to treat than
Mhm.
a physical illness. And unfortunately, there's such a stigma in our society that we don't even really consider, a lot of people don't even really consider it as an illness.
No.
But and then there's also the misuse of that. I look at the ADHD and the autism thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Spectrum, yeah.
Okay, the spectrum things. Okay, let me qualify this by saying there is a real thing called a condition called ADHD. It's people that have actual chemical imbalances in their brain. There
Mhm.
is a real thing, it's called autism, which again, people have specific symptoms. But what I've seen happening now, especially in young children, is that people are just throwing these label on kids that they can't handle.
Yep.
And a huge part of this is coming out of the schools, and I'm not
Mhm.
blaming teachers specifically,
No.
because they are under attack, basically, because they have ridiculous size classrooms, okay, where they're overburdened with children. And also this craziness of trying to mix kids with special needs into normal classrooms is insanity.
Mhm.
It's insanity when they first did it. It's insanity now. It's even worse
Yeah. Yeah.
because all it does is hurt both. The
Mhm.
special needs kids don't get the proper help they need, and it takes away resources and time. And the average kids also don't get the time and attention they need. Okay. So all this is added this pressure that if you've got a kid that's acting out, instead of actually spending the time with that kid, oh, all of a sudden this kid's got ADHD or whatever, and they need to be medicated, or they're on the spectrum and they need to be medicated. It's phony. They're medicating all these kids, and God knows long term what's going to happen to these children who have been medicated and aren't even ill. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
Long-term stuff. I saw it originally happening with Ritalin. This goes back
Sure.
a long way
Sure.
now. It started with Ritalin, and I met this young woman. She's 25 years old and she's still on Ritalin. She's been on Ritalin since she
Wow.
was like 10 or 11, and I'm like, "Oh my God." And
Wow.
this is just a snapshot of what's happening across the board. So this
Mhm.
is another thing that's going on. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of causes of this. There's social media, there's all kinds of things that are happening that there was always bullies, okay? There have
Mhm.
it's not like bullies suddenly, or hazing or
Ah,
suddenly popped up, okay?
yeah.
But the problem is that all this social media and stuff actually makes it worse because people will do and say things online when they're so anonymous, so to speak, that they would
Mhm.
never do person to person, okay?
No.
So
No.
it's just amplified everything. So this is a huge thing that's coming up, and we have to be, and my guides and angels have been harping on this, and it's ramping up now. next year. Just
Mm,
see what happens next year.
sure,
It's
sure.
there's a lot of, let's put it this way. It's right now there's a lot of good things happening in
Mhm.
the background, but there's a lot of very serious issues that we are no longer going to be able to ignore because it's
Sure.
just going to be so front and center that it will be impossible to ignore.
Well, and I think the vast amount of upsets that we're seeing, the shifting that we're seeing in our society away from the global greed, the power mongering, all of that sort of thing that we see on the surface and in the media every day. Well, I believe that it's coming up to be healed, that
Yeah.
all of that, I mean, you can't fix what you don't even see or acknowledge, and
Yeah.
so the fact that it's rising to the surface, and then my hope is, my extreme hope is that there's this undercurrent of consciousness that people are saying, "I vote love," whatever that is meant to look like, let's
Oh,
decide.
I definitely, even though you don't see a reflection of that in the mass media,
Mhm.
that is definitely the undercurrent, and that's what will actually change our world.
So Laura, let's to kind of wrap things up here. Let's bring it down to the kind of the micro. So with individuals these days who are struggling and they really have this desire to tap into their authentic self and be more of who they really are than who they've been told they should be. What thoughts would you have to share with them?
Well, honestly, if you that's where you want to head, you got to do the work. There's just,
Mm,
there's a lot of people out there looking for this magic pill. And,
yeah,
sometimes I'm not so popular because people come to me and I say, there is no magic pill.
no,
Okay. You want to get there, you got to do the work. And the biggest work is being open and honest with yourself and realizing that you need to do the work in the first place. And we need to segregate ourselves from this crazy world in order to, if you want to connect with yourself, you have to create an environment in which you can connect. Okay.
mhm,
So there's several easy, so self-care becomes the most important thing. And my guides harp on this all the time that self-care is the most important thing there is. Because if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not able to take care of anybody around you.
no,
Okay.
no,
The same
that's
thing is self-love. If you don't love yourself, you are never going to be able to love those people that you want to around you.
mhm.
So my big hallmarks that I always stress in terms of self-care and connecting with yourself is number one, I start to sound like a realtor, meditation, meditation, meditation.
Okay,
And there are so many forms of meditation. I guarantee you there's one that's going to work for you. Okay. Because we need to
right.
quiet ourselves so that we can actually have that connection. My guides always say, you guys need to shut up so you can hear us. I have some kick ass guys. I'm kind of kick ass. So, I have some kick ass guys.
Lovely, wonderful.
So meditation is a wonderful way to do that. The other thing is
Sure.
was things that we've already talked about, being out in nature. Again,
Mhm, mhm,
that solitude, that quiet, it allows you to create that connection and nature will help you. Okay. And you talked about hugging trees. Well, I'll give you a quickie. Trees are like crystals. Okay. Crystals are storage vessels for
mhm,
energy. Okay.
mhm.
Trees are record keepers. They're like libraries. They have all, because you have to think of how long trees live, okay? They
Oh,
have all kinds of information to impart to us. But if we don't slow ourselves down and connect with them and put ourselves in presence, then we're not going to gain that information.
sure,
Okay.
sure.
The other thing that is super wonderful is, and I'm going to stress these because these are old techniques way back in Lemuria and Atlantis and all that. Sound healing, huge. This has come up huge
Mm,
lately. I've been doing a lot of sound healing, and that can be something of just listening to vibrational YouTube. There's tons of stuff on YouTube. It can be going to a sound bath or a gong bath.
mhm,
It's monitoring what you're listening to. Okay. trust me, hard rock is
Not where
uh,
it's at.
not where it's at, okay? Now, I love rock and roll, but listening
Yeah.
to hard rock constantly is definitely not the way to go. The other thing is people don't realize we store so much negative energy in our muscles and joints. So you have to have, and I'm not talking about exercise. I got that word out of my vocabulary. I use movement, activity, okay?
Mm.
And the ones that are really wonderful is yoga,
Mhm.
the subtle martial arts like Tai Chi, Qigong, that kind dance. Okay,
Yes. Yes.
dance is another one.
Mhm.
And just the act of, like I said, walking, okay, just to get into a walking program, and start off wherever you are and move up from there. Okay. Actually, honestly, if you're over 50 years old, slugging it out in the gym is probably doing you more harm than good. No, I'm serious. That's been,
That's my
no, it's
sense.
not just
Yep.
my sense. That's been
Yep.
proven now.
Sure. Sure.
Especially for women. Like this is
Yes.
this huge amount of cardio and all this stuff that all those workout routines were yeah, they were all created for men in their 30s, okay?
Mhm.
And even
Mhm.
men over 50 have to relook at what they're doing, okay? Because heavy cardio for women is actually self-defeating. It's actually a stressor, which makes you produce vast amounts of cortisol, which negates everything you're trying to do with all this cardio. That's why a lot of women, especially post-menopause, have a hard time losing weight because they're being given all this advice that is totally contrary to what they should be doing. The
Sure.
other huge thing, if you want to get in touch with yourself, now this is only for some people, because some people relate to this, some people don't, is journaling. Okay, writing stuff down. And
Of
I
course.
actually just saw some information that they put the ECGs on people
Mhm.
who were writing, and it actually activates a whole different cascade in your brain, writing like by hand instead of
Yes.
actually typing.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
this has even encouraged me more because I've never been a writer person. I've been more of a verbal person.
Sure.
And I used to really, if you can't write in a journal, have an audio journal. But after seeing all this documentation, this scientific documentation on how physical writing affects your brain, I'm going to start saying, forget the audio journal, start writing. And that includes me.
Well,
So there you go.
as a writer I taught business writing for lots of years. That's always had my vote, and I've been pounding the same idea.
Yeah, but be careful. I'm talking about physical writing, okay?
Yes,
Not
yeah, absolutely.
typing, okay?
No,
Typing
no,
does
that's right.
not activate the same
Yeah.
regions of the brain. And this actually super upset me. I couldn't believe it. It was a couple of years ago now. They actually stopped teaching cursive writing in
Oh,
school.
I
I
know.
went ballistic. I couldn't believe the fact that they actually did that. So we're not going to teach an entire generation how to write. We're just going to let them print like they were in public school.
I have the same I had the same horrified reaction.
I was absolutely horrified.
Yeah,
Seriously.
and I'm dedicated now to ensuring um, that if my granddaughters, who are 7.5, don't get cursive writing in school, I'm going to teach them how to handwrite.
Well, exactly. Well, see,
Yeah.
now it even horrifies me more
Mhm.
because not only are they not learning how to write, they're not creating those pathways in their brain that they've
Exactly.
just discovered that that's how those pathways are created through actual writing, cursive.
Mhm. 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 Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so we're gonna dumb them down literally in their brain, and we're also going to dumb them down, and they have to, they can't write. They've got to print out something. Like, come on, really?
The first time I had some university level students say to me, "Could you print those directions on the blackboard, on the whiteboard, because we can't actually read your cursive writing?" And I'm going, and it wasn't that it was in not ineligible, legible. It
Illegible,
wasn't
illegible.
illegible.
We'll
Thank
help
you. It
each other.
wasn't that it was
Illegible.
illegible. And they apologized and they said, "Well, we don't actually know how to do cursive writing, and we have the
Well,
same
that's why they
people."
can't read it. That's why
And
they
I'm
can't
going,
read it.
"Yeah," and I'm going, Printing is hard. I don't wanna print on the board."
Well, yeah. See, the thing about printing too is it's like really slow.
It
You
is,
know,
it is.
it's
Yeah, it
really
slows you
slow.
down. Absolutely. Yeah.
And that you don't, not only that, they I just see you react, you activate things that my guides are saying to me. It also, you talk about athletes in the flow, that
Mhm.
flow moment.
Yeah.
That's one of the huge differences between printing something and actually writing in cursive. You don't get into that flow.
No, no,
Because when you're in that flow, things just roll off onto the page, but it doesn't work the same way if you're printing.
no,
So there you
exactly.
go.
Yeah,
But
well, and so you'll see, okay, here's my writing for our show notes today.
yeah, yeah, no, I know.
Got my pen out and I'm writing away because that's how I think. It helps me think.
Well, yeah, since I saw that research on writing,
Mhm.
I just went, oh, okay, maybe I should look at this a different way. See, I always learn new things. This is the thing, and this is what and you asked me. I'm going to jump back to the question you asked me about what I get out of this, or what I want to get out of this, or what I get out. I tell my clients is every time I do a session with a client, I learn something new.
Right, of course.
And the reason one of the like I had a pretty broad knowledge base before. But every time I'm in session with somebody, I learn more things, more spiritual truths, more angles, more how things work better because I'm getting all this information not only from my guide group but also from theirs and also
Sure.
from source. So, and I'll tell you, this is a good note to end on. My guides told me this years ago, and I went, yee! The time I'm in session. Oh, they're saying even doing this because I'm
Mhm.
I'm actually in session because I'm connected. Okay.
Sure, sure.
I don't age. Time stops for me.
Ooh, I love it.
And people always freak out. Like I'm not blowing my own horn because people say this to me all the time.
Mhm.
People always take me for much, much younger, like 10 to 15 years younger than I am.
Sure.
And I'm absolutely convinced that doing this work is part of that. Because the opposite was true when I was young. Okay, when I was young, people always thought I was older than I was. I'm kind of a
Oh.
Benjamin Button thing, okay?
Uh-huh,
People
uh-huh.
took me as older when I was younger, and now that I
Right.
am older, people take me as younger, so I'm loving it. I've been youthifying, yes.
I love it. I love it. Well, Laura, this has been an absolutely amazing conversation. I'm surprised at the directions we've gone, and it all fits in some wonderful way that we'll figure out maybe another day.
Well, that's what I love about dealing with spirit because you can go all over the place like this, but then
Mhm.
spirit always brings you back to where you started. Like
Yes.
it's always connected to everything else. And they usually like to tie things up like they just did. They
A
usually love to tie things up in a
a
bow at the end. So
absolutely.
I love it.
Well, let's finish, Laura, then with me finding. Can you tell our listeners how to get in touch with you if they're
Sure.
all of a sudden have a burning desire to say, okay, I need to talk to Laura. So how do they find you? What do you recommend?
Okay, the easiest way is to go to my website, which is
Hmm.
www.spiritspeaks2, the number 2.me.
Hmm.
And our lovely hostess will have all these things in this. Sue will have all these things in the show notes.
I will.
The other really easy way, if you want to book a session or if you want more information about it, is to just simply email me. And it's really easy because it's just Laura Hoorweg at gmail.com. And I'm all over Facebook. I'm on
Hmm.
Instagram. I'm on X, and I won't say I'm everywhere, but I'm a lot of places.
You're not hard to find.
I'm not hurt by. And I have an unusual this is the good part. I have an unusual last name. So if you Google me, you will find me.
So we won't have to choose between 25 others then.
No, you will not. Actually, that's why I started when I was in the newspaper business at a very early stage. I had an unlisted number. Because because I used to be the only Hoorweg in the book. So if my clients wanted me, whether it was at midnight or whatever,
Oh, no.
oh yes, I would get calls. So I very quickly learned that I should have an unlisted number.
Good for you. Well done. Thanks so much for weighing in, and we'll talk to you, I'm sure, at another time. You take absolutely great care then.
You too.
Thanks, Laura. Well, everyone, that wraps up another session of Magnify with Sue. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. My magnificent ones, this is the journey, moving from fear to self-love, from doubt to inner peace, from hiding to shining. One episode, one conversation, one insight at a time. If you're keen for more, the Magnify with Sue newsletter is a tool you'll love. Week after week, we do this work together. Not as a one-off, not as a nice idea, as a real practice of discovering and embracing the magnificence that you already are. To sign up for this newsletter, join us at magnifywithsue.com.